Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today, as usual. Anyway, how's everybody doing? Let me get to my screen. Para ver. First one in the house, Yvette Avery Herod from Atlanta, Georgia. How are you doing, Yvette? Great to see you here. Merry Christmas. Also, we have Michael Rudnin watching from Twitch. We have Michael Rudnin says, military.com. Trump threatens to try to take back the Panama Canal. Panama's President balked and the suggestion shortly after Trump's speech. Panama's President Mulino released a video declaring that every square meter of the canal belongs to Panama and will continue to belong to his country. Without mentioning Trump by name, Mulino addressed Trump's complaints over rising fees for ships crossing the canal, saying they are set by experts who take into account operational costs and supply and demand factors. I mean, we're supposed to be a capitalist country. There's water problems in the Panama Canal, therefore less ships can go through quickly, which means there's a shortage. And if there's a shortage, prices go up. Isn't that the principles that we teach? ¿Qué es lo que pasa con esta gente? All right, Financial Times says Trump told Europe Europe wants 5% NATO defense spending target. Trump is to demand NATO more than double the 2% spending target, which only 23 of the alliance 32 countries currently meet to 5%. European official briefed on Trump's thinking said they understood that Trump would settle for 3% and that he was planning to explicitly link higher defense spending and the offer of more favorable trade in terms with the U.S. during NATO's forthcoming June summit. It's clear that we are talking about 3% more than the Hague summit. Look, Trump is a bully, and that's what he's trying to do. Whoa, they want to beef up security, beef up defenses, like he cares, right? Because we know what he thinks about Putin. That's who he adores. All right, Radin says, Egberto, whoever thought Trump was anti-war clearly didn't know what the hell they're talking about. Well, we always knew that. This is from a guy who basically doubled our drone strike program in the last time he was in office, then prevented disclosure of the number of strikes and body count, while green-lighted indiscriminate bombing in mostly brown countries where he clearly didn't care who died. Now Trump is pushing NATO to more than double their defense spending while threatening an allied country with the war over territory. I swear, if Trump goes into Panama, it will be no different than what Russia did with Crimea in 2014. Imperialist aggression. Egberto, I'm worried about your near future. Trump went after Haitians over some BS, and now, as you know, this bluster will escalate after he gets repeatedly mocked and rebuffed. When Trump sends our military into Panama, there will be a lot more than 4,000 dead. The future is looking grim. By the way, look, let me tell you, grim and hasn't even assumed office yet. Look, it's not 4,000 dead in Panama. It's at least 10,000 dead. If you take a look at where Chorrillo was, I know where Chorrillo is. That place is full of tenements, and you don't even know all the people that live in one building, etc. It's amazing. But that's I have my link today is about that. We're going to hit it in a minute. All right, welcome aboard, Paul Fleming from Powder Springs, Georgia. We also have Michael Rones says, Egberto, don't forget to share in Blue Sky. What would I do without my PDR posse? I actually forgot. I need to try to find. What we have to do is there is a demon that I need to get that actually automatically does it for me. I don't have it yet, but I will work on getting that, Senor Radnin. But I'm about to share that as we speak so that you can actually reshare and do all your magic with it. Para ver dónde estoy. Para ver dónde estoy. Estoy aquí casi listo para hacerlo todo. All right, there we go. I am here, Radnin. Hey, Radnin, thank you very much. It is officially. Oh, wait. All right. It's officially shared. All right. Let's see what else we got here. What else have we got here from our peeps? We also have, let's see, Melanie Keelan. Happy Monday, 23 December, folks. Melanie Keelan from Barcelona, Spain. We also have new, a year-long House Ethics Committee investigation into former Matt Gaetz found substantial evidence that the Florida Republican committed statutory rape, solicited prostitute, and used illegal drugs. The man spent $90,000 on prostitutes, man. $90,000. Wow. All right, let's see what else we got here. Lee Grant is in the house from Montgomery County. Eric Hayes in the house from Kingwood, Atascocita. Okay, let's see. When HOA doesn't protect you and sells to a developer who will end up flooding your neighborhood, we have a local one called Meritage Homes clearing land that was wooded for over 10 years. Now they move in thanks to HOA, and now an area that did not flood during Harvey will now. The land is being lifted and leveled 5 feet above street level so that you are going to flood because you are not elevated. You know what that's called, Eric? Michael, help me out here. Because a lot of these folks that like to talk about they don't like regulations, regulations would have solved that problem with your HOA. But Houston is a city that has no zoning, which is a regulations, or anything of that nature. You live by regulation, you die without regulation. So I hope as people see the debauchery that's going to happen as Donald Trump tries to take away legislation from his using his pen, that you'll see that the mercury that couldn't be dropped out of the ash will now end up in your streams. And where does that mercury come? Where are that mercury stuff again? Oh, mostly in red areas. So as they drop that regulation, we're going to pollute a lot of red areas. So as they drop regulations left and right, guess what gets polluted? Mostly a lot of red areas. Ha ha ha. Low income folk. All right. All right, let's continue here. Paul Pullman says, my newly found sister and her husband lives in Panama. I will be vacationing there soon. Don't forget, only go during the day, but go to Colon and go get into those restaurants. They don't look quite nice, but man, the food is good. Let me just tell you that. Colon is where you have the Afro-Latino Caribbean folks in Mas. You have them in Panama City also. But in Colon, that's what the city is, my brother Fleming. Check it out. Get out of Paris, too. Okay. All right, let's see what else we got here. Bruce says Panama and Greenland. Yeah, I know, right? Okay. Para ver. Okay, let me go ahead and start because I think it's like 17 minutes long. My rant on Panama, I did it today. Let me make sure that I have all the connections set up so that it can be heard everywhere. You know, I have all these systems set up now thanks to you guys complaining sufficiently enough that ¿dónde está? Yeah. Okay, let's see. What is that story about Panama, right? A short history. Let's go. Let's do that right this minuto. Lo vamos a comenzar ahorita mismo. Guess where I'm from? I'm from Panama. And I know the tribulations that Panama went through. In fact, a little secret. I think it was in 1821 or somewhere around there. Panama, I believe, got its independence from Spain. So it was an independent country for a while. And then it joined Gran Colombia, which was a conglomerate of different South American countries. And it eventually became a part of Colombia, the actual country Colombia. And while there was Colombia, they were building this canal, the French was building the canal. De Lesseps was, I think, the guy sort of in charge, and they failed miserably. Why did they fail? Because building a sea level canal in Panama is not like building a sea level canal that this company did in the deserts in Saudi Arabia, where they built the Suez Canal, right? They just had to dig sand and open it up, and sea level between the Mediterranean and the Mediterranean Red Sea, I believe. But anyhow, well, America wanted to build a canal, and Colombia said, "No, señor, no vas a construir un canal aquí. You're not going to build a canal here." So they got a few rebels in the province of Panama, which was a part of Colombia, and I don't remember the president, I think it was Roosevelt, put a battleship in front of my city called Colon, right? And said, "Okay, you are now an independent country, and we are going to sign a treaty," of which no Panamanian signed. Of course, it was Bonavaria, the person who signed the. I'm taking this off the top of my head from my elementary school, so if I get a few little things wrong, it'll just be a few tiny things wrong. But Bonavaria signs the treaty, the United States Treaty for the Panama Canal, where it granted. I don't understand the language. It said 99 years in perpetuity. America got to get the canal, build this canal, and on both sides have 5 miles on either sides of the canal that they control. They ran the canal zone as an apartheid state. I kid you not. The canal zone was an apartheid state within the state of Panama. But I tell you, no matter what, of course, Americans are there. Standard of living is higher. So Panamanians flock to work for the American governments, of which my dad was one of them as well. You know, it's like, hey, if you're working for Canal, the Panama Canal Company, right, you make quite a bit more money and, you know, all that good stuff. But still, the Panamanians living on the canal zone, they lived in substandard housing. We lived in substandard housing on the canal zone. So a lot of folks that lived on the canal zone, Panamanians that is, they also had homes, what we call in the Republic, what means in Panama away from the canal zone, which we did as well. The idea here being that we had America come help the creation of this country, Panama, to build a canal to create an apartheid state within the country of Panama. Now, throughout between 1914 and 1970 something, there were riots upon riots upon riots because, again, we had this apartheid state within Panama. In fact, on the canal zone, the only flag flown for the longest time was the American flag. So here you are. Think about another country coming into Texas, take Austin and say, we are going to hold on to Austin in perpetuity. We're going to have a police force, a fire force, a judicial system. And not only that, we're going to prevent Texans, born Texans, from being able to go into the canals, into Austin. If we don't allow them into Austin, unless by permission, unless they work there, etc. An apartheid state within Texas. That's how it was in Panama. Let me tell you a few truths, however. Like I said, we lived on the canal zone. And as a Panamanian living on the canal zone, I didn't realize a whole lot of this. I know that the Panamanians lived in one section while the Americans live in better homes and they had better things, etc. But the schools that we had, while they were made of wood, right? And their schools, all of it was made of concrete. You know, that's the standard building procedures. Our teachers, most of them Panamanian West Indians, were exceptional. And we fought and we fought and we fought to get equal rights on the canal zone. And I remember my class was the first class on the canal zone to graduate from the unified canal zone schools. In other words, we had an apartheid school system too. The Panamanians went to one school system. The Americans went to another school system. We got substandard books, substandard everything, except our teachers were excellent. And on the American side, they had the tools, the microscopes, and all these great things. And we wanted those things too. we worked for the Canal Zone. And we finally got it. My class, again, was the first full class to graduate out of that. And let me just tell you, I remember our teachers on the Canal Zone, the Panamanian teachers, grilled us and told us that we had to be an example because the reasons these folks, I remember them telling us, don't want us there is they think we can't compete. They think we are substandard. They think we speak funny. They think that we cannot do X, Y, and Z. And our first class in Cristobal High School, and the Panamanians came out with the first 14, I think it was the first 12 or 14 physicians. I don't remember exactly. This wasn't because the Panamanians were smarter. This was because the Panamanians had to be prepared and had something that they had to prove because they were treated as less than the other. That's what happened. They were treated that way. I want to break off from this little commentary a bit and say one thing. When you see somebody like Tiger Woods excel, when you see somebody like the NBA players excel, etc., 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 and you have what I called those who would want to say there's something genetic of these performances, etc. You know what made those performances? It's amazing the things that racism and prejudice can do because you have to work twice as hard than the majority population. It turns out naturally that you have to excel. But going back to, so I mean, I want people to get that in the head. What we don't generally have is an even playing field. We have a skewed playing field. And anytime we try to unskew that playing field, whether we use things like DEI or other things to say, let's correct the injustices of the past, something always rears its head to get rid of that necessity, that reality. Now we come back to Panama. In 1964, we had these big riots. 1964. Then my old man worked for the the American Fire Department on the Canal Zone, but he lived in Colon. Okay, that meaning you cross over into the Canal Zone to work. When you're done working, you go back to live in Panama, in the city, in the country proper. And when they had the big riots in 1964, my father participated in hosing people out to prevent them from really invading the Canal Zone because it was going to be bloodshed in the Canal Zone. And he was part of the Panamanian groups in the fire department that actually helped maintain the peace. But that also put a bullseye on a lot of these guys because a lot of these guys were told, don't come back to Colon because in effect, you hosed us down to protect the peace. And that is the only way certain particular groups of folks actually got what they called quarters. I mean, it's amazing how they did this to live on the Canal Zone. So there's a whole lot of history in this little apartheid state created by the United States in Panama, and that bears mentioning. To solve this problem, Omar Torrijos Herrera, the person that the American government loves to call the dictator of Panama. By the way, before Omar Herrera, we had plutocrat after plutocrat, oligarch after oligarch, some rich oligarchs that, Panamanians they were. We used to call them Rabi Blancos, that controlled all the sources of production in the country. Everybody else lived the substandard lives. These guys, the president of the country, each time that got elected, Arnulfo and all these other guys, they were sanctioned by the not sanctioned, but, that's who the United States wanted as government. Finally, in 1970 something, I don't remember, like 76 or so, the overthrow occurred. The dictator, Manuel Noriega, Omar Torrijos Herrera, took over the country and forced a treaty. Things were just getting out of hand, so forced a treaty that turned over the canal and the Canal Zone back to Panama to have full control, a sovereign state. Carter signed that treaty. It was called, I think, the Torrijos-Carter Treaty that gave the canal to Panama and the corresponding military bases, because America built 14 military bases in Panama, as well as some other entities, Gargas Hospital and these other things. I want to give you a little corollary here. America has a small, tiny base in Italy, and they were paying tens of millions of dollars for that base in Italy. They had multiply 10 miles by 50. They had approximately 500 square miles of a apartheid state they created in Panama. And for that, they gave Panama something like, I don't remember the number, don't quote me, but it's somewhere between 1.5 and 13 million bucks to rent, right? For that apartheid state, that's what they paid America every year. Paid Panama every year. Panama made nothing from the billions that's been made passing ships through the canal to save them from going through the southern tip of South America. They got very little. They got that too. But places like Italy and France, the spaces that America rent, they give away hundreds of millions of dollars. So that is the disrespect with which Panama has always been treated by the American government. Actually, it was an American corporation created by the American government to run the canal that had its own private apartheid government. Again, I have to admit, while I lived down there in Panama on the canal zone, I never was educated in politics to understand the political dynamics. You just existed. You understood this is how things work. And it wasn't, as far as you're concerned, it's neither bad or good. It's just the way it is. It's just as I matured, became older, a lot of things I would kind of hear my father say, I understood it now in a different light. And it's a shame that I didn't understand a lot of this till I moved to the United States, right? But I understood it. So after December 31st, 1999, big day in Panama. At that point, all of Panama became a sovereign country. No more apartheid state in the center of Panama. And by the way, again, that apartheid state occupied the center of Panama for its entire 50-mile diameter, not diameter, but, a punto to cross from the Atlantic to the Pacific Ocean. There's a whole 10-mile gap that Panamanians have to cross if they want to go from one side of Panama to the other. Like I said, a lot of times you don't understand the predicament you're in until you look at it from the outside. Now we come to today. There are a lot of issues with the canal right now. We have climate change. Panama has a big rainforest that normally collects all the water from the rain season, and they throw it into two big lakes, Gatun Lake and Madden Lake. And these lakes have been running pretty low because, again, climate change has brought less rain during the rainy season to Panama. And because of the way the canal functions, the canal is a very ingenious level of engineering, because what it does is it creates a huge lake in the middle of the country, and it uses locks to pull water, bring the ships up to the lake level. The ship goes across the lake in the middle of Panama where it's mountainous. So they use big valleys in the lake. They fill big valleys up with lakes, Gatun Lake. And they only had to dig a trench 8 miles long called the Culebra Cut. Used to be called Gaylord Cut, now Culebra Cut. And they cut through mountains for only 8 miles, whereas otherwise they would have had to cut 30, 40 miles of mountains if it weren't for bringing the ship up to the top of the mountain in that lake and move across. Now, after they did that, again, we have problems with rain last year and for the last several years. So if you believe, like America believe in, I don't, but America believes in this thing called capitalism. I call it the biggest theft really on the labor and resources of the world. And I think that is easily proven if you want to be honest about it. But that's what America believes, and that's a standard of the Western world, including Panama. Now we have a shortage of water to pass the ships through the canal in high numbers. So what happens when there are shortages? Whenever there are shortages, the price of the commodity or the price of the service goes up. So less ships can pass through the canal while we had water problems because, again, the lakes are not peak full, etc. So you can only pass X amount of ships now. So the prices naturally go up for the lesser amount of ships that can have access to this Panama Canal. Trump doesn't like that. Trump wants all other countries to disregard what America asks of its own. Trump wants the other countries to simply absorb the cost that America would never absorb. And because the rates to pass through the canal has gone up while this shortage occurs, and because it is likely to go up the next year because of inflation, and to mitigate and to create other resources to maybe not have this water shortage as bad the next time around, Donald Trump is threatening to go into Panama and take back the canal. That's what he says. Take back the canal. In other words, disregard the treaty. Disregard the Torrijos-Carter Treaty that returned the land and the canal to Panama. I mean, this brings back memories. We call ourselves a country, a body of laws. That's what we say. We believe in laws. We follow our treaties, all this good stuff. But you know what? When Torrijos-Carter signed that treaty, Panamanians should have always known one thing. Go speak to the Cherokee. Go speak to the Indians about the Black Hill Mountains, or the Black Hills, or the Black Mountain. I don't remember what it's called. As soon as these guys found gold, they got the American military to come in and kick out the natives and take back the land that by treaty they had rights to. I mean, treaty after treaty after treaty, we break. We are the ones who withdrew from the Paris Accords. We are the ones who withdrew from the Iran nuclear treaty. It wasn't the other way around. At some point in time, we are going to have to lead by example at some point in time. But if Mr. Trump, President-elect Trump, think that folks are going to stand by and watch him, as Howard mentioned before, the greatest grifter on the planet, jump into Panama and claim to take back this canal, he has something else in store. Because as opposed to how many of us were back in the 70s, back in the 80s, back in the 90s, where we just let things happen, that will never, ever happen again. And I repeat, that will never, ever happen again at all. All right, let's see what we got here. Looks like Panama has gotten lots of benefits. You sound like the colonists, my brother. You sound like the colonists. It's our country. Why do you want to impose benefits on us? We didn't ask for it. Okay, let's continue. Egberto, I'll make a prediction. In the year from now, grocery prices are going to rise 30% because of Trump's tariff tax and corporate greedflation, pushing prices above and beyond the taxes. I want to see all the complainers about eggs. They're going to keep quiet. They're going to suck up the price and just say, oh, what's going on here? But there are going to be a few that are going to really raise hell because there are a few people who actually bought into the crap. Love how ignorant Eric is to tell a native of Panama what is going on. Kills me. Shows he pays no attention to actual history and first-hand account. It's not only that, Vrij. It's also, and let me be very frank now. Okay, I want everybody listening, specifically my white brothers and sisters. There's something that people of color understand, and also women to some extent, because I was in a thread over the weekend. And in this thread over the weekend, we were corresponding about how can we get people together, how can we solve the nation's problems, etc. So it's a long chain that's been going on for 3 days, an email letter chain with some activists that are working on some work and bringing people together. But the only problem I saw was the film that we use as a template. It consisted of men of just about every race, but it was only men. We never heard the woman's point of view. And likewise, in this discussion, which wasn't about the movie, it was just about how do we bring people together, what are the things we needed to do. They're the only people participating. It's about half men, half women. The only people going back and forth with these emails are guys. So my last email said, we are only getting half the argument. We're only getting half the debate because we don't have the women's flavor in this discussion. And in effect, I was not admonishing, I was trying to trigger women to respond because, again, half of the people receiving the email are women. So one of the leaders responded and she said that she was busy doing Christmas stuff and she didn't want to stop to get involved. But one of the reasons she didn't stop to get involved was that she felt in these organizations that women can talk and talk and talk, but are never heard. I repeat, they talk, but they're not heard. The guy would bully them. And let me tell you, it's the truth. I'm on several boards. I'm on the board. I'll just tell you about the board at KPFT, the national board. I can't tell you specifics because we're under signature that we can't talk about it, right? But I can tell you that the dynamics that you always see on these boards is that there are healthy, vibrant conversations between men. And a woman would talk and you wouldn't get a lot of a lot of response. I would always make sure to intentionally listen, intentionally see where this woman is coming from, and intentionally make sure it is a part of the discourse. I learned that at Move to Amend because, yes, I suffered from the disease as well. I said suffered, past tense. So I intentionally make sure to do this. Okay? Now, here's the other thing. I went to another activist group. This one was about Medicare for all, healthcare for all. And one of the things that I started, I had a very long commentary. And the commentary that I had about it had to do with the election because those of us in this space were fighting and talking uh, about what do we do after this loss? Why did we lose, etc. And I started hearing the same old stuff you hear on TV that Kamala lost because of the economy. Kamala lost because all these things are completely and entirely, to put it in the best English, stupid. That's not what the numbers tell you. Only somebody who doesn't want to accept the truth will look at those numbers and read that people were so concerned about the economy, people were so concerned about the price of eggs that they elected the guy who almost killed them, the guy who is just a complete evil being, right? So, I mean, you could see the results in North Carolina, you could see the results in Wisconsin, you could see the results all over and understand that Kamala Harris did not lose because of the economy. She lost because of her gender and race. So I gave through a whole litany of the rationale of how I came up to this statement. In other words, it wasn't race baiting, it wasn't playing a race card. It was just saying, look at the numbers. And after giving this 5-minute speech, as we are going around in circles and people going back and forth with items, everybody went back and forth with other people who had different statements to make. My statement of 5 minutes of illuminating with fact-based information, and this is in a very progressive group. After I said that, the next person that spoke simply moved on, and the entire room moved on. Not one commentary was made to that entire essay that not essay, but that statement that I gave. And I made sure that we went a few more rounds and people kept on talking back and forth, replying to each other's commentary, etc. And I made sure to go back and forth to make sure it's not my imagination that I just wasn't heard, or nobody had the decency even to say, well, Egberto, I don't really think this because it was simply placed into the ethos and nothing was ever made of it. So afterwards, I had to leave the meeting fairly early. So I put in the chat that I needed to go, and the person who ran the program told them, the chair of the program said, hey, Egberto has to leave. It was probably about 25-30 of us. Egberto has to leave, so let's break the cycle, let him say his last words, and then I would exit. So my statement at the end was, let me tell you why we have issues with other demographics. And by the way, I was the only person of color in this room, this particular room. And I said, let me tell you why we have problems with demographics, and we have problems because we don't really, some people are invisible. You make up your mind of what the reality is going to be, and that is how you define it. And I was very surprised. This is me talking to these guys. I was very surprised that no one touched anything that I said. No one made a comment about anything that I said. That is one of the reasons why, even in our progressive space, you won't get an answer. And if you take a look at some of the things I put up on progressives versus right wing, because I also go to right wing areas, and I'll be honest, I am treated as an individual in the right wing space a lot better than I am treated as an individual in the left wing space. I understand that in the right wing space, they're going out of their way to let me know or let me believe they're not racist, they're not prejudiced, and they believe in inclusion. On the left, they don't feel they need to do anything, even as you look at the entire setup on the left. And when you look at it at the levels that I'm practicing, the leadership levels, etc., it's scant. So yes, when Breed says, "Oh no, Egberto Willis, you were treated like a woman had said it," eh? Yes, that's why I'm saying now. Let me now throw it back on women. That's why it was so upsetting for me when I saw the results of the election. When I saw the results of the election and I saw that women, specifically white women, who understand what I just said, who lives through what I just said, some of these women themselves were in these progressive spaces that I made my narrative on, and they as well were quiet. My daughter has explained it to me as far as if one group is on top and there's another group hanging on into second place, they will that group hanging on into second place, unless they resist that carnality, unless they actually have a good spine, they would rather hold on to that second place than to run the risk of attempting to bring everybody up that's feeling that prejudice to then fight the power at the top. I actually had a good way of explaining that concept a few times, which when you put it through the mechanisms, it makes a lot of sense. Protect your lane. You are one step away from the lead, right? And that is the magic of Trump. Trump knows how to enhance that. Trump knows how to break that coalition. When you had a leader like Obama, Obama was the kind of leader that empowered all people in the groups. And that reflection of a leader did what it was supposed to do. He empowered. So everybody felt empowered to go execute. So you didn't get that drop off like we got with white women in when we had Kamala Harris. But when you have a leader that does the distinct opposite, which works on breaking people, creating dissension among people, then you get the kind of election that we got. And it's only speaking the honest truth. Like I am speaking right now about my own experiences in these spaces, not right-wing spaces. I'm talking about left-wing spaces. It's only when you can be honest and say this occurs everywhere that when it comes to racism and sexism, there's not much difference between right and left. The only difference is the left purport to want to do something about it. And in the laws that they pass, they do something about it. In their own personality, they don't. They don't. But in the laws, at least, where it's codified, they do something about it. I tell you better. I think until we understand that particular concept, until we get that in here, right? Nothing's gonna change. And we have to intentionally work on this. And this means white women have to get on board. And there's no two ways about it. You know, I always laugh. I know I know math, right? And I always found it funny that they called black women, and I'm racializing things right now. I hate to do that because you guys know where I stand on that. But demographically, in the voting patterns, I want to illustrate something. I always found it amusing when they called black people, and specifically black women, swing voters, because the reality is black folks in the total only represents 13% of America, a very small percentage, 13%. White people make up 65 plus percent of the population. And if you include proximity to whiteness, which is a part that they don't like to speak about. I remember when I read the story that said, oh, in the next 10 years, America going to be a predominantly minority country. I laughed. Exactly. Michael Rudnin, ding, 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 ding. Michael Rudnin just won the prize. White women are the real swing voters. Look, we have to be honest. White women are the swing voters. But let me finish my narrative. So when you take a look at that 13%, or when you take a look at black men that the whole media was getting all excited about, black men are going to vote for Trump instead of 90% voting for Biden. They're going to vote for Biden only 80%, and 20% are going to vote for Trump. And the media goes crazy. Oh, black men are falling for Trump. Even if that were true, it doesn't matter. That is such a small number. If you tell me that white women went from supporting Donald Trump from 55% to 50%, I would say, wow, we have just taken over the entire damn country. Because that swing, that 5-point swing, in the case of this election, a 2-point swing with white women would have given us the election. In other words, if 2% more white women said, you know what? Trump is bad for us. Trump wants to grab on my thing. Trump wants to kill my daughter. Trump wants to do all these things. If just a small percentage of white women did that, because there are so many, that is the real swing vote, brother Rudnin, sister Bridge MCP. That's a swing vote. What we have with black women is they are the most reliable vote of any voter, bar none. they're going to vote the interests of the country. Bar none, they will vote the interests of the country. They will hold their nose and vote the interests of the country. They won't sit down and say, well, I think I don't like what this person does or whatever. They'll come like, child, I don't care if this guy was, in other words, if Donald Trump, if they thought, if they thought Donald Trump would be good for women, all women, I guarantee you they would drop all of their party affiliations and all of that kind of stuff and vote that way. And there is a cultural reason. There's a cultural reason why black women behave that way. And that's what a black woman, specifically leader in the party, told me. And it's clear. They are the ones in the prejudice in this country. They are the ones that have to take the most. Women have to take a hell of a lot of prejudices, if you take a look at it, but black women take more prejudice than any other demographic, bar none. So they have to always be making that calculation, what is actually best for me, and with that, my son, my husband, etc. And this isn't stuff that I'm just pulling out of the air. You listen, you go into one of those spaces. I go every now and then. I would find one of those groups on Twitter Space, and I would get into those Twitter Spaces and listen to them. And every now and then I'll push the speaker button, and I mean, some of these Twitter Spaces have 1,000 people in it. But because I have a blue star on Twitter and it has politics done right next to it, usually if I push the bar, I get a chance to speak. And they'd listen, and I'll ask a couple of questions, and I'm telling you, uh, so this invisibility thing, women go through it, but I tell you, people of color, it is just if you don't have a strong skin, a thick skin, it will demoralize you such that you never participate. One of the leaders and this one was a white woman. What she said, one of the reasons I don't even talk, I talk in women's group, but I don't really talk in these kinds of groups. That's what she said. And my reply is, you can't do that. Actually, I didn't reply to her. That's what I wanted to reply to her. Was, you can't do that. You have to remain engaged, because even if they don't acknowledge you, somewhere in their ethos, they're responding. All right, Michael Radin says, Alberto, fun stuff with statistics from Pew Research for the screen. I'm going to put it up there, Brother Radnin. Let's go ahead and get it to the screen. Let's see where. Oh, it's on Medium. I think it's on Medium. No, that's not Medium. Let's see where it. Why? Oh, here it is. No, that's not it. There it is. All right, here we go. This is from Brother Radnin, people. Let's go ahead and get that onto the screen. Let me put it onto the center screen. And there it is. It says, most white adults have a neutral view toward the declining share of white people in the USA. All white adults, 5% very good, 11 somewhat good, 62% neither good nor bad. But that's a very misleading way of asking the question. And let me tell you why. Most people are going to choose that middle ground. I don't know if that's. I think they have to reformulate that question, Brother Radnin. I think that question have to be reformulated. Okay, so I think we got to reformulate that, because the ones who says very good and somewhat good, those are like that super progressive answer that progressives normally give. That one in the middle is a different thing. So I would have to take that one with a grain of salt. All right, let me continue seeing if I got to read. Hey, I went long-winded today, guys, but I think what I said. Let me ask something. Does anybody want to call me up and either refute, agree, or or talk about that issue that I just spoke about. I only have 7 minutes left, and I'd love somebody to call and talk about this issue. Let's do that. Let's do that. Let's have somebody call in. Maywood says, I guess you never noticed that Panama is a Panama. Also, I'm guessing you never paid much attention to in history class. The canal was started by France. It was by the Lesseps, yes, when they ran out of money. When they ran out of money, they turned to the United States, but back then Panama was part of Colombia. There you go. Thank you for noticing that. Michael then said, Egberto, yep, most people aren't racist, and the younger they are, the less racist they tend to be. I actually agree with that. Most people aren't overtly racist. Most people still have a few hangups, but it's not the hang up of the old racism. It's a familiarity hang up. Just like if I went into well, I can't use myself as an example because I feel comfortable in absolutely every environment. I've yet to find an environment that I hadn't felt comfortable in, so I can't use myself as an example. All right, Michael says, come on, folks, give me a call. 71, I mean, 281-823-7747. 281-823-7747. Let's see what else we got here. Read out, please. Most white people say it's neither good nor bad when whites go from majority to plurality in the 2040s. And the younger the white person is, more likely they are going to say it's a good thing. The young people are going to say it's a good thing because, I mean, that's their lived experience. They go and they have fun and they realize that having fun is not a race dependent thing. Having fun is just having fun. People have the most of people's attributes have nothing to do with colorization. I wish we were there. We just aren't there yet. As my I have a nephew. I never forgot it. He and his wife is white, he's black Latino, and they drove down here. And thank you, Joe. When you get a chance, give me a call the next time we're on. And they're driving through a West Texas town, and his wife, while he's just pumping the gas and looking around and smiling and having fun, and she sees these two white guys in a pickup truck close, in the parking lot, just staring, and she gets concerned and she just stays she gets concerned, and my nephew is completely oblivious. That's just how he grew up, completely oblivious to the possibility of danger, but she was not. So when they drove here and they got here to Kingwood, she came to my office and we're sitting down, and she's like, you know uh sometimes I have to remind uh Tarata that he's black, and that some people would kind of want to hurt us, you know. And then I'm like, I know, I know, I know. But what I found ironic is that it was her who expressed the concern, not him. I just thought that was a funny thing. Anyway, we got a limerick. We've got a limerick from our resident poet. Our resident poet with a limerick. Let's get busy. Here we go. Some are calling Elon Musk the real president, but only native born can be White House resident. Unless a plot most senator. Oh, I got to do it again. I got to do it again. I got to do it again. All right. Who do I have the honor of speaking with?
AI is taking notes.
Hi,
All
is
right.
my phone working? This is Joe from Los Angeles.
Hey, Joe, it's working. Let me do the limerick real quick,
Oh,
and then I come to you. No, stay on,
okay.
stay on, stay on, stay on. All right, here we go.
Okay.
Some are calling Elon Musk the real president, but only native born can be White House resident, unless a plot most sinister would make Musk prime minister. Trump needs Elon's billions near, so Congress reps their primary sphere. Perhaps Musk wouldn't find it too Spartan if he lived close to Trump in the Rose Garden and not be hesitant glamping out in a luxury tent. I love Sarnik. He's a great poet. Anyway, how you doing, our beautiful Joe? Talk to me.
Okay, about white women having
Mm-hmm.
grown up in an evangelical white family. They're a different type of thing. There's no community. There's only the unit, the family unit, and the woman connects to the man subordinately and doesn't think for herself much. God talks to the man talks to her. And so that's why white women don't vote for women or their own rights. I've lived it. It's very sad.
Let me ask you, are you white?
Yes,
Okay, so you actually experienced that in your upbringing as an evangelical Christian?
yes.
And are you still
I
an
escaped.
evangelical Christian?
Oh no, I'm an atheist.
Oh, you're an atheist now. Okay. Well, look, I'm first of all, thank you so kindly for that input because I think people need to hear this because I think some other folks have articulated something like that, but coming from somebody that actually lived it is more important than
Right.
any. Thank you, Joe.
Well, in my family, I still see it. So, okay, thank you.
No, 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 no. Finish, please.
Oh, I still see it in my family. They still act this way.
Oh, so you're saying that
Terrible.
behavior is still there.
Yes,
Now, and let me ask you the stupid question and feel free not to answer. But are you older, younger, in the middle? What's your age group?
56.
56. Well, look, very much so. Thank you so kindly for your call, Joe.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Now, think about what Joe just said, folks. That is an important note that needs to be added to the equation. Anyway, let's see. Musk derangement syndrome going. I just love me some Lee Grant. Lee Grant can always be the great contrarian in this group. But well, Lee Grant, we don't even need to talk about Eric. I think Eric is just, well, you know what I think. Anyhow, we must listen to white women. We must listen to everybody. But anyway, look, it is 4 o'clock. Time flew. I did a lot of talking today because I really, you guys open the door for that. But that's what we do here, right? And by the way, remember, you can always call in and change the subject. Let's see. Egberto, when you get a chance, check your FB messages. There's Bele of the Ranch video I want you to check out about the Panama Canal. I will do so today, Michael Rudnin. So, I'll do so. Anyway, folks, we need your support. Please go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. If you have the wherewithal to do so, please become a paid subscriber. That's how we are fund all the different networks that we run here. So please go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Support the newsletter if you have the ability to do so. And you know what? You will be ensuring that we have truly honest conversation. You always have an input. And as Bridge, women in this domain, women rule. Right, Bridge? Women rule. And, think about it. Women have been ruling for a long time, even they didn't get credit. You doubt me? Ask FDR who ran that White House. Ask FDR. Anyway, folks, I got to get out of here. Thank you so kindly, folks. Don't forget, become a supporter if you can at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Or if you want to know all the different ways in which you can support us, go to politicsdoneright.com/support. I'm going to put them both back in there again. Politicsdoneright.com/support gives you the all-encompassing different manners in which you can support Politics Done Right. Or you can go to Substack and please click on that subscribe button and consider becoming a paid subscriber. Thank you so kindly. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you guys know how I end this, baby. I am what? Out. Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.